So it's almost the end of 2018 and Adobe have recently released a new version of InDesign 2019. It's got some great new features, but we're just going to focus on the 5 features that I feel are probably the most exciting and important ones. The first one is the new Essentials Workspace. Secondly, we'll be looking at how to use the fit content to a frame. We'll then be looking at the new fonts preview feature, then looking at the PDF comments window, which is new, and then finally finishing off with the new space after feature, which is really good for those that work with bullet points. So let's jump straight in and take a look at that first Essentials Workspace feature. So the first feature that we'll take a look at in the InDesign CC 2019 is the new Essentials Workspace. Just like in Illustrator and Photoshop that were updated probably mid-2018, they've now introduced a new Essentials Workspace for InDesign. So when you first start the program up, it will automatically open up in the Essentials Workspace, and one thing you will notice is that there's no longer a control panel running across the top here. Instead, what we have is this properties panel, which is very similar to what the control panel used to be. It is responsive, so if I come across and I click on an item, you'll notice that the properties panel updates and it shows me the whole bunch of properties that relate to that selected object. If I jump over to that text block, we can see that we get a whole bunch of properties that relate to the text. But if I click off to the side there and I don't have anything selected on the page, I get back to the properties of the document and its page size and margins and that sort of thing. So if we take a look, we can see up here that I can click on this drop down and I can actually change my page size from here if I want to. I can also go in and change it from portrait orientation to landscape. I can even add in my own custom size, and we can also adjust our margins. So if I did want to make changes to the margins on the overall document, I can update that there. When we are making adjustments to the page size, you can go into the Adjust Layout panel in order to adjust things like the text and margins in proportion to the changes that you're making on your page. So if I come across and click on the Adjust Layout button, it opens up the Adjust Layout window, and we can see from within here, we've got the ability to change the page size from here, but also underneath my margin section, I've got these auto adjust margins to page size changes. So if I turn that on and make changes to my page size, we can see that it automatically changes the margins in relation to the new page size. I can also do the same with my text if I wanted to adjust the size of the font in relation to the changes that I'm making on the page. I can auto adjust the font size, but I won't do that in this case. I'll just come out of this window. Within this properties panel, we've also got the ability to turn our rulers on and off. We can also change the visibility of our guides from here, as well as lock the guides if we want to. When it comes to images, if I come across and select an image from here, we can see that I've got a whole bunch of options now that relate to editing that image, getting it to fit within the frame. If I wanted to, I could also import a new file over the top of this image here, or I can even view where the file is saved on my computer. If you're used to having the control panel visible and you would like to go back to it, you can always jump up to your workspace drop down from here and go back to the Essentials Classic Workspace. When I do that, we can see that we're back to having the control panel running across the top. And we've got our standard panels over here on the right hand side. The next feature we'll take a look at in InDesign 2019 is the content aware fit. For a while now, we've had a number of ways to fit images inside of their frames. Let's take a look at them. If I click on this frame here that I'll place an image inside of, Command or Control D to place, and I'll just drop this image in. So when that image drops in, it's quite large, so we're only seeing a small section of that image. While it is selected though, we've got our fitting options running across the top. Quite often we use the first option here, fill frame proportionally, and when I click on that, it reduces that image to fit inside the frame, although we are getting some of that image cropped off to the side there because it is a landscape image and we're dealing with a portrait orientated frame here. So we would have to come in and manually drag that image across so that we see the content that we want in the frame. But what they've introduced now in InDesign 2019 is content aware fit. So it's actually this last one here. If I hover over it, you can see it there. And we'll have a look at how that works. I'll come across and I'll select the second frame I've got here, and then coming down to my libraries, I'll drag and drop that same image I've got from the library this time, and holding down Option or Alt, I can then click in that frame to drop it in. And I'll just click on it again to select it and come up here and choose Content Aware Fit. And we can see what InDesign has done is it has used Sensei, its artificial intelligence software, to detect where the content for this image or where the important content may be. It normally does a pretty good job at finding the content that should be centered. We'll take another look. If I use the image that I've got down the bottom here, we can see that's a landscape image. I'll do the same thing with this third frame here. If I come across and I'll drag and drop that lotus image into this frame, holding down Option again, clicking inside the frame. Now, if I was just to use the Fill Frame Proportionally button here, we can see that it fills the frame, but we're losing half of the lotus. But if I come across and choose to use the Content Aware Fit, we can see it's actually centered that right in the middle of the frame. So it can be a great way to get the subject matter of our images inside of their frame. You can also set this up as a default setting in your preferences. So if I come over to InDesign Preferences and then go to the General Settings, we can see that from within the General Settings, down the bottom here, we've got Content Aware Fit. So if I choose to have that on, I can make that Content Aware Fit the default whenever I place an object inside a frame. I prefer not to do that, so I'll just cancel that preference change. Another cool new feature is the way that InDesign has improved the way we view or preview our fonts. If I come over and just select this first line of text, we can come up to my font options here in the control panel, and we can immediately see what has changed. That selected piece of text is now actually visible from my font drop down here. You can change this if you did want to have a look at other ways to display the font within here. I could do that, but I'll take it back to the selected text option. And we can also see that as I'm making the selections from here, it's also updating on the page, so I get an immediate preview of the font that I've chosen. So if I scroll down, we can take a look at all the available fonts that are currently on my system. Now, what Adobe have also done is allowed us to sync our fonts a lot more seamlessly when we're working with the fonts available to us on the cloud. So previously we used to have to go to Typekit in order to sync with the fonts, but now what we've got is this Find More feature. So if I click on to Find More from here, we actually have a whole bunch of fonts that I haven't downloaded as yet or activated on my computer. These are all available in Adobe's cloud, and the great thing is you actually get a preview of the font without having to actually sync with the font. So it's not until I decide to sync that it will download. And if I find a font that I want to use, let's just say I'm happy with this one here, I'll come across and I can just activate the font by clicking on this cloud here. But I'll just cancel that. We can also choose to view similar fonts within a category. So for example, if I find a font that is a modern font, say this one here, and come across, I can choose this Show Similar Fonts. It'll show me a whole bunch of fonts that are similar to the font that I had selected. We can also still choose to favorite from here. So we've got our star there that we can click to favorite and then choose to view our favorites. If I go back to my normal fonts that I've got loaded here, I can choose to show only the favorited fonts within here. So these are some great updates when we're previewing our font, the ability to see these selected font on page, as well as the ability to jump in and sync with fonts that we may not have downloaded as yet from the Adobe Cloud. The next new feature in InDesign 2019 is the PDF comments panel. Usually when we are working on a document, we'll send off a PDF for somebody to review. When that person receives the file, they can open it up in Acrobat and make comments and send that back to us so we can update our InDesign file. We can now import those comments directly into InDesign through the PDF comments panel. To open it up, we'll go up to Window and then down to PDF comments. From within this panel here, I can choose to import a document where there may be some comments made on the PDF. If I jump over to Acrobat, we can see that we've got the PDF of this file sitting in here, and we've got 3 comments over here on the right-hand side. So with the first comment, we've just made mention that we want to use a different image in the background. Second comment is that we want to remove that last line of text. And then the third comment is we want to add some text within here. So I'll jump back into InDesign, So if I now import the comments in the PDF through the Import PDF Comments button, it will open up my window. I can navigate to where that PDF is and load them in. And so starting at the top here, we can see that 3 comments have been successfully imported. To select one, I can just click on it here, and I can see that it highlights the comment down here. It's actually put that cross through the text, and I can choose to actually accept that comment here. And we can see that it has actually removed the text from that paragraph. Now the next comment at the top of the list is this line here, which looks like it needs to be added down here where the cursor is currently flashing. So once again, I can choose to accept that, and it's now added that text to the bottom of my paragraph there. I might need to go in and fix it up slightly, but we've brought that text in. And then finally, I can come across to the last comment here. Now this is actually just a comment in relation to the image that's being used in the background. So I can choose to replace that image, but I do have to do that manually in here. Once I've done it, I can come across and say that I have resolved that issue by clicking on the tick there. I can then, if I want to, remove the comments just by deleting them with the little trash can that we've got here. In the comments flyout menu here, we've also got the option to delete all comments. Or if we've got a new PDF to bring in, we can also import PDF comments from here again. So that's a great new feature. So the final new feature in InDesign 2019 relates to our paragraph spacing. We've now got the ability for certain lines of text to ignore the space after function. If I come across and select these bullets, this is a good example of how this function can be useful. I'll select these 3 bullet points. And if we go up to the control panel and take a look at the settings that are being used for the bullet points, and in particular by looking at the indents and spacing section up here, you can see that at the moment these bullets are set to have a 3mm gap between each of them. Now that's not the case. We can see that at the moment these bullets actually don't have any gap between them. The spacing between each line is just what the leading is, 10.8. But there is a 3mm gap between this last line and the text that follows. So why is this happening? Well, we'll find the answer in the Paragraph Styles panel. I'll come across to the Paragraph Styles panel and open up the style that I've set for this called Bullets. Double click on it to get inside, and we'll jump straight to the Indents and Spacing section. So down here is where we find the answer. So as we saw in the control panel, there is apparently a 3mm gap. Now previously, if we just added this 3mm gap, what we would get is a 3mm space between each bullet point. And I'll show you what that would look like by turning off this new feature here, space between a paragraph using same style. So if we just ignore this function, really that's what our bullet points would have been looking like in previous versions of InDesign. But we've now got the ability to set this space to 0 so that only that last line has the 3mm. So I'll come across, click on that drop down and set the space between those bullets to 0. So what essentially this function is doing is whenever there's a bullet point followed by another bullet point, it will not add the 3mm until the last bullet point when it changes style to the body text here. So this is great because previously we had to have 3 different styles for our bullets. We would have to have a style for the first bullet, the bullets in the middle, and then our last bullet because they all needed different spaces before and after. But now we can just have the one style for our bullets, and we can now control the spacing that happens before and after the bullets by setting our desired distance between the bullets that are using the same style. So there you have it, some of my favorite new features in the InDesign CC 2019. I hope you found this video helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos from Short and Sweet TV.